I was mentioning that we have sort of a weird start because we're both Catholic Jews who almost joined the Freemasons and like went through the law school route, and that sort of circles back to the mastery idea because I think part of that for me comes up as trying to make up for lost time. Because one thing that really struck me when I read the Curiosity book was I also couldn't look at the teacher or anyone else when I was a kid.
Why couldn't you?
I couldn't pay attention in class.
Right.
I was having a really hard time. I still feel that sometimes. So I did the look away, right? The look down or look away.
Yes.
And that created this social anxiety that, as I had as a kid, was so much worse.
Yeah, they fed each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's like you can't get over social anxiety when you can't look at someone and you're doing this when you're talking to them. It's weird.
Exactly.
It just makes it worse because you know you're being weird.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah. It's sort of walking, even today, it's going to a party, not feeling like you have enough confidence to go in there with confidence. Mm-hmm. It's all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course. And I think for me, I still feel in some ways like I'm faking it. I wonder if you feel it the same way.
I don't, but Ron Howard, my partner, my symbiotic mate.
Hetero life partner?
Hetero life partner. When we won Oscars for A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'd been up for winning Oscars before. We didn't win. Now we actually won. And we're sitting in this little waiting area to go in front of like a bank of 300 journalists and photographers. And he's like getting a stomach ache. We already won. He goes, oh man, I have a stomach ache. It's usually me. He goes, I have a stomach ache. He said, do you have anything? I said, I have these Tums. So I handed him these Tums. He ate the Tums. He felt like I had helped a little bit. He goes, wow, thanks. And he said, do you think anyone will ever find us out? And I go, you've got to be kidding. We're geniuses. Are you crazy? Here's again evidence that we know. We don't not know. We absolutely know. So I don't think that ever. But I think I look at it kind of like this. I have extreme optimism, hope, and enthusiasm on one hand. I feel like I do tap into my internal heartbeat of what that truth is, and that truth is really usually turns out to be like the most valuable commodity in any conversation. But on the other hand, even though I've got this whole thing of like, I will make this work out, will it into working out, the 100 movies that I produced, I do also think like, always, what's going to go wrong? I don't know what we should say that.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. I always think I'm always, I know there's going to be a bunch of things that go wrong. Always a bunch of things that are going to go wrong. Even though I have high expectations on the result, I think the journey is going to be fraught with unpredictable problems.
I know you're a pretty hands-on producer by your own account. I wonder, are you the one that normally yells at people, or is it Ron? Because it's hard to imagine Ron Howard being like, you dumb piece of shit. You know, he's like a little Opie, right? But now as a grown, super accomplished man, it's still like, I can't break that image.
Yeah. Okay, so he doesn't yell at people.
Yeah, no surprise.
I mean, he got mad once, like this is 35 years. He got mad once at an actor. He said something like, God damn it.
Yeah.
You
gosh darn it.
Yeah,
get off my set.
It was something like that. It was a really crabby old character actor, a star in his own right.
Right.
And he just kept kind of like pushing on Ron, and eventually Ron goes, gosh darn it, you're off. And he let him go, which was kind of amazing.
Bring that coffee in here.
Yeah, this is a
Bring
real
that
life
coffee in here.
Hot set, pal. All right, thanks. Okay. Should I yell at him right in front of you?
No, it's okay. That's so Hollywood, though, right?
Yeah. Well, I never yelled at people. I don't yell at people.
No? That's worse then.
Well,
you make them feel bad, and then they know they've done wrong. Because if you yell at someone, they're like, wow, geez. But if you just say, I'm disappointed in you. I thought better. I expected more. Then they're like, shit, I'm such a piece.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a boss that yelled all the time. And he yelled like all of the time. And I just saw the physics work against him. It's, I would watch, I was like 22, and I'd watch his man, Edgar, yell at people. If he's not yelling at me, he's yelling at someone else. And I'd look at people looking at me like, is this going to end? What's that going on with this
Ooh,
guy?
yeah.
So I just thought, I don't want that to happen to me. So I don't. I get very wound up, but I don't show the person like that.
So internally, you're like super pissed off, but externally, you're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
I wonder, if you feel like human connection and your quest kind of for human connection maybe saved you from a life that you thought you were going to have. Because you have a learning disability, right?
Yes.
But that was undiagnosed as a kid.
Correct.
So movies are a good escape. But I wonder if being creative is kind of like, well, I'm not good at sitting down and reading all this stuff. So maybe a creative pursuit rescues me from a life of like breaking rocks, which isn't, we're not built for that, man, especially you.
Yeah. Well, I think that you can always turn, not always. I think what I did is I turned a disability into a superpower. But it took so first the disability produces a lot of shame. A disability is a disability, and so it's hard. But if you just keep, fighting for that little bit of oxygen out in the middle of the ocean, you'll get it, and you will then use that bit of oxygen to animate powers inside of you that you didn't think existed. Meaning, like it creates creates a person that's resourceful. Like you were doing right then. You were fixing all of these things. There was not a SIM card? What was the card?
Yeah, there's no SD card.
There's no SD card.
There was, which is even worse. So
I
didn't want to
see. I didn't want to see you blow up or anything, but you didn't. But you actually found the problem. You isolated the problem, then you fixed the problem. And so similarly, I can do the same thing with stories and movies. I kind of know. I can get my hands on the carburetor and fix the engine.
Yeah, but there's more to that story, of course, because you were nominated for 43 Academy Awards, 131 Emmys. I don't think I'm getting nominated for
196.
196. Well, geez, you got to update your Wikipedia, man.
Yeah, I mean, we've been wanting to meet for 2 years. You're right. Oh, was it in the Wikipedia?
That's probably where I got that. I assume.
Boy. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, well,
okay, all right.
You're never going to be able to change that. They're going to fight you tooth and nail. You try to change your Wikipedia? Good Lord.
I think I have to put some effort into
this.
This.
Don't have Will do it. It'll never get done.
Wow.
Poor Will.
It's a funny show. I love that. You're right. That's right.
Unintentionally funny show, yeah. The best award story, I was going to save this for later, but the best award story might be the one that you actually didn't get for Braveheart. Can you tell me about that?
Okay, sure.
Ridiculous.
So what happened is I had this opportunity. I read a 12-page outline written by the astronaut Jim Lovell on a failed journey to go to the moon, and it was called Apollo 13. I ended up get the rights to this failed journey, which became a book, and then we thought, well, geez, how are we going to make this into a movie? Everybody knows the ending, and we figured out if we got Tom Hanks, the world would want to save Tom Hanks.
I knew you did. I knew it because I was like, why didn't they put, oh,
wow, you are smart. Kevin Costner or somebody.
Yeah, and even Kevin Costner, you want to see him come back.
Yes.
But there was somebody else I was thinking like, oh, they didn't put him in there, and there's a good reason. And I'm trying to think who it was.
Like an action starry guy, right?
Yeah, or like.
It wasn't Steven Seagal, was it?
No, that would be. You wanted to win an award for that movie.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah.
Man, I'm trying to think. I even wrote down. I knew that you had to put Tom Hanks in there for that reason. It'll come to me.
That was the reason. We had a whole list of actors, including Kevin Costner and Tom Cruise and other action stars, and probably the one you're thinking about. And then I had this sort of moment where I thought, who does the world want to save the most? Mm-hmm. The guy that's not on the list, this guy named Tom Hanks. And that became our choice, and it was a good choice for all of us because the world did want to save him, and they lived inside of his soul and had tremendous empathy for this journey that was failed. So we ended up making the movie with Tom Hanks. It is incredibly successful financially, so far exceeded what we ever thought, and then gets 9 Oscar nominations. So now, with the 9 Oscar nominations, I'm thinking now we're in this new race, not just to make money, but now we're in the Oscar race. So it comes down to like the day before the Oscars. And everyone is saying, oh, you're going to win, Brian. You're going to win for Best Picture. You're going to win. Apollo 13 is going to win. It's patriotic. It's intersecting with the NASA's anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fortunate.
And so a lot of things were very much going in our favor. The patriotism, the heart, the success. And Las Vegas odds people, you're going to win. It's Apollo 13. A very famous financial wizard named Mike Milken said, I want to come over and see you. I want you to say 8 words when you accept the award. I said, I can't even think like this. But so it was like a lock we were winning. So I write this speech. I'm ready to say the speech because I think I'm positive we're winning. So I have the speech in my tuxedo pocket, and the final envelope of the night is read by Sidney Poitier, the Oscar-winning actor that's very deliberate about how he communicates, slow and deliberate. He's got the envelope in his hand for the Best Picture, and he got the envelope in his hand, and he's going to open it, and he's opening it very slowly.
Of course,
which is torturous. Then I think I see a B for Brian, imperceptible as it was,
right,
rolling off his lip. And I'm on the 6th row, and I'm looking, and I get up to accept the Oscar because just all those signals, and I'm imagining, and I get up to accept the Oscar, and he says it, and he says, Braveheart.
Oh.
So then I was so embarrassed. I walk back to my seat, and I turn around only for a second to sit down, and I see a guy say, loser.
Oh, my God.
Chairman of another studio does this to me. And I thought, oh, why am I such a loser? And then Jim Lovell, the actual astronaut, reaches over Tom Hanks and Ron Howard to get to my wrist, and he says, I never made it to the moon either. And he put the whole thing in complete perspective.
Yeah, like, well, at least, yeah, he never made it to the moon, but no one went, oh, you idiot, you tried to go to the moon. You just got up before, you just had premature celebration.
That's really
And then,
funny.
I don't know, Harvey Weinstein or somebody was like, hey, you're a loser.
Yeah, exactly. That's the guy.
Was it him?
Yeah, he's now in prison.
He's now predictable behavior.
Predictable.
Yeah.
He's now predictable.
When somebody does something really terrible in Hollywood, just go, it's probably Weinstein. Unless it happened after right now, because he's in prison.
You're so funny. My God. Okay.
You know, your book's about human connection, but you post a lot of food photos for a guy.
Yeah.
In the book about human
Food
connection.
videos.
Food video. Yeah,
Oh,
like
videos.
I know what you have for breakfast every day. I guess it does make sense though. I do the show in person because the human element is so huge. And,
It is.
eye contact.
Oh
things like
yeah,
that.
it's important. We're doing this together.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I do those food videos, and I do, I say stupid things, kind of silly things, but I'm always exposing what I'm eating, and as you know, and then only this Saturday I have an amazing chef, and I was eating Japanese food, and I had these amazing ribs, spare ribs, and I said, I call them Saturday ribs. And my friend Bob Iger, who goes under another name, says, oh, Saturday ribs, that's fascinating. Because there's nothing inventive about calling something ribs Saturday ribs.
Yes, you're the guy you don't get to come up with the names of the movies that you produce. It's somebody else's job.
Exactly.
Yeah. Bob Iger, interesting guy.
He is. He's really accomplished. He's very, very accomplished.
Yeah.
As accomplished as you can be.
Yeah. I mean, he's the chairman of Disney or the president of it? CEO?
No, chairman, CEO of Disney. And he just wrote a book himself called Ride of a Lifetime. I'm now selling his book. But
yeah.
Well, but we're very, we're closest of friends, and we both wrote books around the same time and released them only a week apart. So my book, Face to Face, was out first, and there's the one to purchase this moment.
That's right. That's right. Don't worry about Bob. He can make everyone at Disney
Bob
buy
is doing fine.
He's fine.
Bob is great. He's bought Marvel. He bought Pixar. He's bought everything. Now he bought Fox. And
yeah, he's got Disney stock. Don't worry about Bob.
He's killing it. Yes.
When you started your career in Hollywood, you started networking your butt off right away.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because I know you got your first job at Warner Brothers in '74 as a legal clerk, which is really kind of funny, like a glorified sort of courier at that point, right?
Yes.
Clerk, clerk in air quotes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, here, you take this envelope and you bring it over there. But you made the best of that. Tell us what you did to make that a job that wasn't just soul-sucking.
You almost didn't define it as demeaning as it really was.
Right, yeah. I'm trying to cut you a little slack. But you turned it into, like, a really good opportunity.
I turned this absolutely a zero job into, like, an amazing opportunity. So it was a zero job, just like you said.
Yeah.
My job was just to deliver papers, Warner Brothers documents, if they even had happened. So the first week I just sat in an office this big, no windows, just looking around at the, somebody caught me once. Jeff Katzenberg said, I saw you. I was sitting back in my chair. I was throwing pencils into the ceiling. Actually, a ceiling like this, because he brought it up to me only last night, because I had a book party, actually. And so he goes, remember when I met you? You were throwing pencils into the ceiling.
Like trying to stick pencils into acoustic tiles by throwing them really hard?
That's what I was doing.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Well,
I've never been that bored, I guess.
Yeah. No, I was at the height of boredom. And then eventually they said, okay, it's a week later, deliver these papers to Warren Beatty. And I had to deliver papers to Warren Beatty, who was living and working out of the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. And an assistant was down there and said, hand me the papers, punk, that kind of thing. And I said, I made this up. I was 22. I said, the papers are legal documents that aren't valid unless I hand them directly to Mr. Beatty.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, give me the fucking papers. And so I said, I'm sorry, but they're invalid, and I would have to go back to the office to Warner Brothers in Burbank with the papers. All right. So then I got upstairs. My job was now just to hand them to Beatty. But I turned it into like a conversation.
Sure.
And I was really enthusiastic, and I lit up, I guess, and he lit up back, and I turned that transaction into like an hour conversation. Then I thought, I can do this all the time.
Right.
I can do it every time I have to deliver papers.
Right.
So I remember William Peter Blatty wrote the book The Exorcist.
Wow.
Big best-selling book. I can name all these big names. But when I had no one to deliver something to, which quite often occurred, I would just do outgoing calls to people that I admired in the movie business. So I'd write a letter to Lou Wasserman. They didn't have emails in the day. And then I'd follow up immediately with a phone call saying, I just sent a letter to Mr. Wasserman, and my name is Brian Grazer. And they'd hear my fresh, excited young voice fresh out of college. And they always said yes. I mean, I did say, I work at Warner Brothers. This is unassociated with studio business, but I want to meet your boss for the following reason, and I guarantee you I do not want a job. In other words,
That's
indemnified.
Important.
Yeah, it was a very essential ingredient because I indemnified them from embarrassment.
And the I do not want a job is important because that's what they're thinking is this person wants something from me. They're just trying to be famous in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I'm so sick of that. And that's probably why these assistants didn't get fired for letting you talk to their boss in the first place. Although Warren Beatty probably fired his assistant if you talked to him for an hour after that.
Maybe I could ask him.
It's a great speech, though, to come up with people to meet in the movie business because you kind of don't really get to do that very often. And I know you set a goal to meet one new person in the movie business every single day.
Every single day, yeah.
And that's impressive.
So I would, I created, you have to create discipline, right?
Yeah.
And so I was good even though, again, dyslexia, I found a way to sort of I never solved it, but probably, but I found a way, in junior high to read, and I was able to spell. And to this day I can still, of course, read, but it takes effort and discipline. So, but the bottom line is, I created this discipline of every day I would go meet a new person. And so that was just really a function of saying, I'm going to disrupt my comfort zone every single day and put myself in a situation where I have to learn the language of physics, or I have to learn the language of whatever that is to meet somebody so I can communicate with them. Or you, I had to learn about your podcast. I didn't know everything about your podcast, but I realized all the really smart people that you've met, and I realized I think I was able to understand the theme of what you're trying to do. And so you come in, you're informed, and you can be a good conversation. You can be interesting. Mm-hmm. I think the goal in life is to be interesting, because if you're actually interesting, then you'll be interested, and people will be interested in you. And so that makes the bridge of connection valuable.
That's one of those
You
kind
have
of
to
Dale
have something
Carnegie.
to say.
Yeah, like be interested in other people to get them interested in you, right? Yeah.
Tom Hanks always used to say during Splash, "Here he is, today's version of Dale Carnegie."
Oh, really?
He was always teasing me. "Here he is, Dale Carnegie. What question do you have today, Dale?"
Wow.
Yeah.
Had Tom Hanks making fun of you. That's high on
Oh
the,
yeah,
it's a
he's
bucket list item for most people, I think.
that was a regular activity.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, he seems like a funny dude.
He's
I
a
mean,
funny dude, funny smart dude.
Yeah, has to be.
Yes.
10 Minutes, though, with Lou Wasserman changed the way that you look at the movie business, right? Didn't he
Yes.
kind of like rip you to shreds and throw a legal pad and say, like, do some real work? Something along those lines,
He
right?
did. I tried to meet Lou Wasserman. Everybody said yes. Lou Wasserman said yes. I got him to say yes because I cornered his assistant Melody and many other people that worked around. And the minute he saw me, he realized, like, this is bullshit. Like, you know,
Who is this kid?
Who is this kid? So he said, sit still. And or stand still. He wouldn't let me in the office. He went to his office, came back with a big legal tab, those yellow legal tablets, and a pencil and said, take this. And he handed me the pad and then the pencil, and he said, put the pencil to the pad and it's worth more. It has greater value than they do as separate parts. Get out. Like beat it. So I got in the elevator feeling pretty embarrassed that he did it in front of a bunch of people, but it was the most valuable lesson I learned. I learned that you have to come in with something. You have to own something, meaning you have to give life to ideas. And so write them down, and then you own something. Mm-hmm. That doesn't even have to be perfect. Just don't say what's going on. To have someone say what's going on, you go nothing. Right. Nothing. You can't say nothing.
I'm just here to take up your time and your oxygen in your office. Take a selfie.
You are super funny. Yes.
Well, the book's about curiosity.
Take a selfie.
Yeah. Lou Wasserman, like, hold on, let me get the camera guy. Yeah, the one guy in the building with the camera.
Yes.
Curiosity is such an American or maybe Western value. I mean, it's really not.
It is, by the way.
Yeah.
I can speak to that.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we have our company Imagine has Chinese investors.
I was just going to bring up China. Yeah.
And I told one of our early investors, they read my book and they loved the book. So I said, I would like to do a location-based entertainment that involves curiosity. But I don't want to go through that right now. And he looked at me like, not a good idea. And I said, would you like my book? And then I got him to explain what curiosity means in China, his interpretation to me. If curiosity is directed towards productivity, like it's literally, it's not meandering, it's not a casual thing. Curiosity is used to case build or build something that is a product of value.
Right, tangible.
That is tangible. Then China likes that.
Yes.
They really like that. But if it's a casual dalliance, if it's a hobby or flirtation, they don't like it. It's a negative word.
Yeah.
So it has to be very, very defined.
Especially if you're questioning, should this be the way that it is right now? This order we have doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Curiosity.
Right. Yeah. Or like curiosity about whether or not you're being governed in the best way possible. Then it becomes fatal in China and Russia.
Yeah. Or why are we doing facial recognition everywhere?
Yeah. Oh no.
Why would we do that? Yeah.
It's convenient for you to get arrested when we're looking for you. Yeah. That kind of thing. You have built your life around these curiosity conversations, which when I read it, I went like, oh, it's kind of like my podcast, only he's not recording it. in a way.
It's sort of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that idea, though. Can you tell us what those are? I think that's useful for people that aren't just, like podcasters or movie producers. More people should do it. More people should do it.
More people should do it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go reach out and meet Jonah Salk, that I did, or Princess Di, or Michael Jackson, or Steve Jobs, or Bill Gates. You don't have to. You can do that, but you can. I've learned a lot from my Uber drivers.
Sure.
I just recently from a Serbian. First of all, I didn't know he was Serbian, but I had to ask him, and I said, he's a Serbian citizen, Serbian, And he was a very big guy, and he was an Uber driver. And I started talking about martial arts, which I'm very interested in martial arts. I've done 3 different disciplines. And he said, oh, well, in Russia, we have one called Sistema.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what that was. You do, apparently. And so I said, can I pay you to teach me this? And he did.
Yeah, it's like kind of Krav Maga-esque.
Yeah.
And it's like it's based on reality. It's not based on like doing things in the corner by yourself.
Yeah, you're using, like, if you think about a wave in an ocean, so you're using the energy of that. It's like very free form like that.
I think they use it in the Army over there.
I'm sure they do.
Like special forces and stuff like that.
You'd be good to do this job.
What?
Curiosity job.
Oh, this job? Yeah.
You're very good at this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so basically with me, you said, how do I use it? So basically,
well, you had a cultural attaché. This person was like your booker, right?
Yeah, my booker.
Yeah.
But I did it for 20 years before the cultural attaché.
Good, I still got a few years left before I hire my own.
So I had 20 years of doing this on my own, scrambling around and begging and groveling, which I still do now because...
It works.
It works.
It works. That's how we got here. I finally said, listen, Veronica, if you don't book Brian, I'm going to keep whining to you every week. And she was like, fine.
Yes. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
You did it. Here we are.
You're my Lou Wasserman, except I brought my own iPad. No legal pad required. How do we get these meetings if we're not Hollywood heavyweights or podcasters with a social media following or whatever?
You just have to think about subjects that interest you. Well, first of all, yes, you have to think about if nothing interests you at all, then this is not the thing you're supposed to do.
Remedial curiosity time.
But if you're interested in anything, architecture, how a building looks, and you realize, oh, I like the looks of that building. And then you say to yourself, or so you say to us, why does that building look that way? Oh, it's the architect. Then it's not the design on the inside. It's It's Disney Hall. You go, why does Disney Hall look like that? Oh, it's this architect. Really? Who do you think that is? Oh, his name is Frank Gehry. Wow, he must be a young guy. No, he's 90. Interesting. Well, I'd like to meet a guy that could do that at 90. I'd like to know what it's like to still be vital at 90. Plus, I'd like to know how he was able to come up with this sort of design. And is that a consistent design in all of his architecture? You have to sort of iterate all these questions.
How do you then book? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, and then you're a nobody.
Yeah.
You're a zero. I still feel like honestly, I still feel like I'm a nobody.
Really? Well, good.
I mean, I have accomplishments, but I do feel, I feel like I have to scramble. How do I scramble? I have 3 assistants. They have to do stuff. They're supposed to make calls. I don't let them make calls. I say no calls. I'm making every call right from here myself with my own phone line or AirPods. And then I call every call is done by me. It's faster, it's more efficient, and guess what? I get to know the assistants.
Right.
The assistants are gonna rule the world. And I've been doing that. If you think of the agency, Creative Artists Agency.
Sure.
There's 4 guys, but 2 that really run it. Someone named Richard Levitt and someone named Brian Lord. They used to work for people, and I would call their bosses, but I talked to them. Richard Levitt would go, oh, you used to talk to me. I worked for Fred Spector.
Yeah.
Whatever. So it's really important to do that. First of all, it creates good karma. It activates your enthusiasm because you can't go, hey, can I talk to your boss?
Yeah.
You have to go.
You could now, but why start now?
Yeah. You go, hey, is Brian in? Brian Lord in that case, or I don't know, I'll be fair about it. Ari Emanuel. I go.
Sure.
I call Ari's office, even if I just go, hey, is Ari in? They go, hey, sure. Because then they want to connect you.
Yeah.
They have something vested in it. There was a director I was trying to get approved by Universal Pictures. And so I called the boss, the executive. I called his. I said, hey, is so-and-so in? And they said, well, he's leaving. And I said, he needs to, before he leaves the country, he needs to have a meeting with this one director. No, he's got no time. I go, please, he's got to meet these directors. Please, please, please. Who are they? I say the names, and the assistant goes, we love them. All of a sudden, it became, okay, it's Thursday afternoon. We showed up. They proved them. They're now directing Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
The
wow.
movie, the new movie again.
Yeah. So don't outsource your networking, basically, because a lot of people do
Yes.
that. They go, "Oh, I don't want to do that anymore," so they hire someone, for
Yeah.
$20 an hour.
Oh, I love.
You're laughing because that's twice as much as you pay the person, right?
Yes, that
Will's like,
that
"Wish I
and
got-"
outsourcing your network.
Yeah.
It's very true. I'm actually quite frankly, given. I mean, I understood it in the day when people used assistants to make the call.
Yeah.
And jump right into a speaker box, and they could sound like the Wizard of Oz, and like some big deal. But I'm surprised that Hollywood doesn't do that. Tech guys do that. They don't use assistants to make calls, really.
No.
I mean, Brian Chesky is a very good guy who created Airbnb, who actually stole my assistant name. I'll leave it alone. But I became friends with him because he stole my assistant. But I was okay because she didn't go to a producer in Hollywood. He didn't go to
Right.
Jerry Bruckheimer. Go, he's better than you, Brian. He went to Brian Chesky, who's
Right.
created Airbnb. That makes sense.
So you would have taken it personally if she had gone to somebody else in the same niche.
I would have said, geez, what happened? What's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah, I can see that though, right? Because we're competitive with people that are kind of within that magnetism range of where
Yes.
we are,
Yeah.
or in our same orbit. But if somebody goes and works for somebody on the other side of a totally different industry,
Yeah.
it's hard to compare. You're too different. You can't really.
All my superstars are people that got yelled at by Scott Rudin.
right, yeah.
I take all them.
Yeah.
He's really talented, really gifted, tremendous sense of quality. Ironically, Scott Rudin and I both worked for the guy that yelled. There was a guy, Edgar J. Sherrick, and Scott, he was the boss, and Scott and I were equals as two guys that were just punks trying to get up in the business.
two punching bags. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. So you met Jonas Salk. Was that like one of your first big sort of curiosity conversations?
Yes.
And you puked on him, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
At least you puked on a doctor.
Yeah, and I know. That was the good news. So I was so nervous. I was very excited about meeting my childhood hero, Dr. Jonas Salk, who created the polio vaccine. But it took 2 years to finally get someone to agree for Jonas Salk that I could meet him. And I had so much excitement. I had so much pre-anticipatory excitement, anxiety, that when I approached him, while you're laughing, when I approached him to say, Mr. Salk, I kind of projectile vomited.
Oh my God.
And but he is a doctor,
Right.
And so I laid down. He wanted me to lay down. I was feeling faint anyway. And he summoned a glass of orange juice, and just the comfort of his hand on my head, I was back to life.
That's quite an impression. He probably remembered that for a long time, I would imagine.
Yeah, I bet because then he said he really liked me. We started to see. I did curiosity conversations with Jonas Salk, till the sort of end of his life.
Wow.
We became friends for the remainder of his life.
He's like, just sit 3 feet away, or here's a air sickness bag for the next time. Yeah, I think if somebody was so nervous that they puked on me, I don't know if I'd be like, when's our next meeting?
No,
Good for him though.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Clearly a caring guy. Yeah. If anyone, I wonder
Let's
how
do
many
this
people...
on the phone.
Yeah,
We?
yeah, we'll do the interview remotely next time. Thanks for puking on me, Jordan.
Yes.
You have worked with a lot of amazing people over the years. Spike Lee, Denzel Washington, Russell Crowe, heaps of others. How do you manage strong personalities like that? I almost feel like you can't. You can't really be like, Denzel, this is ridiculous. Behave yourself. Not that you would have to with him, but I don't think you could if you needed to.
No,
right?
I can't. You can't do that.
So you just have to hope that they're cool to work with, that they work well?
No, you have to. Your communication system with very accomplished people like Denzel or Tom Hanks or Eddie Murphy or Russell Crowe, or I could go on, has to be, or Jim Carrey, in the day, you have to have a communication system where you're warm and honest, so they feel your heart. When people feel your heart, they're rooting for you. They're they don't want to be on bad behavior. But there are times that they all will become impatient with some part of the process, and then you have to fix something. That is always happen. That's inevitable. And the way I think I did that was, even if I'm afraid, I appear to be fearless. So you have to appear to be fearless. And when you appear to be fearless, then you can be loose. And if you're loose, you're honest. And it's a better chance you are to, like, you know, hit that ball, you know, make it work. And so I try to be loose and open-minded and absolutely know that I will say things that are mistakes that they're could prey upon. And know what I'm going to say when they do, which is like, hey, I make mistakes, but my intention is the following. Always know what your intention is with somebody. Always know whether it's a movie or a startup company, you have to have intentionality. What is that intentionality? Because the execution, there'll be so much fallibility involved in that execution. You have to be prepared to know what you intend to achieve and be able to state that and evangelize even when things are off course.
That makes sense. I suppose that way it doesn't make sense for them to pounce on you if they feel like you're being vulnerable with them.
Yes.
And you're not trying to maintain an air of perfection.
Yeah. In trying to maintain an air of perfection, you're going to go wrong. You're going to say something that's not true, then they'll ding you for that. You will, by acting like you're perfect, that's arrogance, which they're really allergic to.
Right, yeah.
Artists are truth detectors. So if you just show your truth, if you're intelligent and you're well-read and you just show your truth, then usually they will be attracted to that.
That makes sense, because I was wondering how you build trust with people that are always targets for being taken advantage of. You have to signal that it's okay for them to trust you, but these are people where, like, I mean, I'm sure Jim Carrey or Denzel has a million fake friends all over the place, and they just are immediately guarded, even by somebody that's working with them, because they're like, what does this person want? That's got to be their default reaction.
Yes, yeah. No, that's for sure.
It's actually got to be quite isolating for people like that. So if you can show that you understand that, there's probably some level of simpatico there.
Yeah. I'm tempted to tell this Jim Carrey story, so being tempted means I will.
Yeah, do it.
So basically, Jim Carrey, I produced Liar Liar, which was a massive hit, and great for me and great for Jim. It was a win-win. I always try to go for win-wins, instantly. I don't try to convince anyone of even an hour with me if it's a win-lose. If it's me trying to get something off you, you know, and I know if it's transactionally oriented, and that person doesn't know that it's transactionally oriented, then there's deceit in the conversation. That's how I see it.
Yeah, they're keeping score and you're not. So then they get mad when you don't do what they want you to do. And you're like, what the hell? I thought we were just having lunch. And they're like, I took you out to lunch. I wanted you to read my script, you prick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's really true. So with Jim Carrey, I'd already two giant hits with him. I did The Grinch That Stole Christmas, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and Liar Liar, and then I had one other movie. And, you know, he's hard to work with, but he's a genius. And he got really mad at somebody on the set, and he kicked over the monitors, and it scared everybody.
Like the TV, like the screens?
Yeah, those screens where there's director chairs, and you're watching the monitors, and he kicked them over. And it was like a temper tantrum kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but he's so brilliant, and I want the best for him, of course. But when he did that, my impulse was to grab him and hug him. And even though he can be intimidating because he's physically big and physically very strong. And
Is he? You wouldn't think.
No, he's big. He has big shoulders and big arms, and he's physically really strong because he gets adrenalized quickly. Like he can get hyper-adrenalized, and when you're hyper-adrenalized, you're very strong. You lift cars up and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So he's sort of that person. And so I just hugged him and I said, you know, Jim, you just got to be happy. You're the biggest movie star in the world right now. You have to be happy with that. And it was a really touching moment, and he just sort of, you know, gained his footing, you know, like rebalanced, and became a good day he turned the day around for everybody.
And you're like, then the second part of that, I guess, would be, and those were $20,000 for taking them out of your check. Yeah, he strikes me as the kind of guy who, along with a lot of other artists, who no matter what, they will never be really happy with what's happening in their life.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know him, obviously.
Yeah, I don't want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to comment on that.
I think the one artist. I mean, there's many artists, but Tom Hanks is happy.
He seems like he's happy. That's probably why other people like him so much.
Yeah.
And I think Jim Carrey is brilliant and insightful, but he's brilliant and insightful in the way where you go, wow, that comes from a lot of pain. Like when you're watching him talk about things on YouTube, you're just like, that's not a guy who's like hanging out with his family, having fun.
Tom has the right dosage of pain to cause him to want to avoid it, you know, avoiding pain or shame. Mm-hmm. So he's the right amount. The balance is right. And it motivates him. He's very, very perfectionistic. So he'll seem like, hey, really regular guy. Mm-hmm. He's just definitely not a regular guy. He's you know, has really supersonic skills. Like not only as an actor, but as a curator of picking ideas that are right for him, discarding the ones that aren't, just dealing with his, I mean, managing choices and the things he does on CNN. I mean, he's very extraordinary as not just an actor, but a director. He does every job. He knows what it feels like.
He's just, he's a magical personality. But this is your show. This is your episode of the show.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So how do you keep in touch and stay connected to people that are hyper-scheduled like that? You know, like I have so much. You are so busy. I'm super busy. It's a constant struggle to be like, let me just give this person a call. They're not going to answer. They're freaking in a meeting. They always are in a meeting. They're always doing something.
Yeah. So how do I reach people when they're super busy, or
how do you stay in? You don't even have to reach them. Maybe you're just staying in touch with them in some other way. Like for me, I text a lot of people because I know they'll eventually read it when they're like getting into the car or going to the next place, but they don't want to be on the phone.
Well, this blows Veronica's mind, my wife, who you referred to.
Right.
I will call everybody because then they see the phone ring. You know, they see it ringing, and they almost always answer the phone if you call, because they're used to this consistent pattern of getting emails or texts or WhatsApps, and so if you call them, they think, oh wow, this
must be important.
Yeah, this is important. This is an aberration. This could be interesting to me. You know, like they feel like it could be, and so I call them. I make it short, but I talk, and so
that's the key. You make it short.
Got to make it short.
Because when I see the phone
cut to the chase. When people call me and they go, hey, and the minute they do the hey like that, okay, now what's happening?
Yeah.
You know, like, and I don't think I'm better. I just want to know what the point is.
Yeah.
I want to know what's our story on this call.
Yeah.
And so just get to the point so we can both be engaged in it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. You're training people to pick up the call because they know it's going to be 5 minutes and not 55 minutes.
Yeah, they know Brian understands time.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's important to signal. I think a lot of people try to be small talky because it seems more polite, but it's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time, and nothing fun comes out of small talky.
No.
I mean, this morning I call my friend Jimmy Iovine. He's a brilliant guy. He's created many music companies, and he's... Anyway, he created Beats that became Beats by Dre for Apple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, he's someone you should have on your show.
I will take you up on that.
Oh, my God. He's a master. Basically, at 20 and a half years old, because people go, wow, why is he a billionaire? I go, why is he a billionaire? I'll tell you why. He was sweeping floors in a music studio. He found a way to become the assistant to the assistant of John Lennon as an engineer.
Yeah.
He shows me a picture of John Lennon and he at 20 and a half years old, and he's important to John Lennon. And then he earned it. So these kind of people are so interesting to me, you know, where they're earning it from the very beginning and becoming experts.
Yeah.
And have far exceeded their 10,000 hours, their outlier hours.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I was going with it. I'm just saying he called me this morning because I had a party last night at my house, actually for Bob Iger. And he came, and Jimmy's just so funny. Like, what's his story? His story is he calls and goes, hey. And even though we've been friends for a very long time, he always is funny. That's the story. The story is he's funny.
You've said that you feel like ideas come from all corners of your brain, and I'm wondering what you mean by that, because I would love to sort of show people who also feel that way that there's nothing wrong with the way that they think. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, so it's not. Yeah, think. That's an old-fashioned measurement tool. It's like thinking about, oh, the way I think, the way my thought is measured is through an IQ test, and it's singular like that. So now we've proved that certainly curiosity is, if you use it, you learn a lot, and there's there's a randomness involved in it, and so you're just trusting the randomness, and that's a system unto itself. So my system, which you could say, oh, that's a singular system or a discipline, it's allowing for the randomness. Mm-hmm. Because I have seen, like in the case of both either A Beautiful Mind or the case of Apollo 13, it all accessed my insights that enabled me to have value to both of those movies that became huge successes, came from a woman named Veronica Denegre that I met in 1985. So basically in 1984, I thought, wow, I think I want to meet this musician named Sting. Because Sting was like a school teacher in England, and all of a sudden he's now a rock star. I thought, what is that guy's journey? Mm-hmm. He was kind enough to grant me a meeting. I got to meet him. And a year later after that meeting, he said, I'm having a barbecue. Why don't you come over? He'd just done the Amnesty tour, and a woman named Veronica Denegre was there. She'd been tortured in Chile under the Pinochet, exactly. And I said, how'd you survive? That became a long story. That long story got me focused on how people survive when they're being tortured, and they live in an alternate reality, another story. So if you think about thought, our present thought would be this. She knew she had to redial that present thought because that present thought was experiencing unpredictable pain every day. So she created another story with another thought system, and within that story and thought system, she could survive this 18 months of unpredictable pain. Which, of course, if you use those insights and transport them to A Beautiful Mind, a schizophrenic, you realize that's the cinematic way to begin the movie, is through an alternate reality, because it then makes it a thriller, not, just a drama.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that does make sense. And
was that too circuitous?
No, I think it makes sense.
Okay.
You've said that your curiosity helps you make movies, and that sounds like what you're
does.
talking about, right? You take just as much with your talk with an activist, Veronica Denegre, as you do with the astronaut, and they both go into Apollo 13.
Yes, exactly.
In a different way, or A Beautiful Mind.
I just think if you're thoughtful, if you're a thoughtful person and you're not lazy and you create disciplines, that any kind of disciplines, just saying hello to somebody is a discipline. Looking at them and just saying hi, and then, you don't have to be an active, using curiosity as actively as I, or you can, as long as you have a discipline to improve yourself. And the only thing you have to do to improve yourself is disrupt your comfort zone. Put yourself in situations that are kind of like this, sink or swim survival. Like, I'm going to be smart on this show, or I'm not going to be smart on the show. I'm going to be the best I can be on the show. I know I'm failing at this, but I'm okay failing. But the point is you have to institute some disciplines upon yourself, and you use those disciplines to grow.
You've said that learning from someone in front of you is better than sex, better than success. And I love that, because that's, I usually get into like the flow state when I'm doing an interview that's going well. I totally agree with it. I think if I say this conversation is better than sex, that might come across a little creepy, but I'm fine with that. Emotional curiosity is something that you talk about in the book as well. You connect feelings and mindset to someone else's work.
Yes.
And then try to bring it into your work. This might be tricky, but what does that mean? How do you do that?
Okay, so let's use that Frank Gehry example of meeting this architect, Frank Gehry, which I did do, by the way.
Yeah.
I pulled that randomly, but nothing is random, I suppose. But so I know that I can't talk to a master architect in depth about architecture, because I can only learn so much on YouTube, or reading books, or and you only have a certain amount of time you can read a book. And now we all know how to study quickly. There's lots of methods to study quickly. So I have to say to Frank Gehry, like, okay, here's a perfect example. There was a previous architect that I didn't want to meet any architects. It was very early in my curiosity conversation. It was about 25 years ago. And somebody, my cultural attaché, keeps telling me, meet this architect named Rem Koolhaas, who's a master architect himself. I said, I get it, he's a master. I don't want to meet an architect. Bottom line, he says to me, this guy, my attaché, says, why? I said, because I think architecture is a manipulation of space, as beautiful as it could be. It has nothing to do with feelings or emotion. He said, I don't know. I think you could be wrong. You should meet him. So I meet Rem Koolhaas. The first thing he says, I say hello, he basically says, architecture is like a living organism. Because I want to understand the big picture. It's like a living organism. And you have to think of architecture as a living organism, because living organisms are going to be flourishing or not flourishing inside of this shell, this architectural shell. And unless you centrally care about people's feeling and flow, as you brought up flow, like, where you're creating environments that are inspirational to human beings, that is the goal. And so I didn't even realize it, so I had it completely wrong. And it was funny to me because I would have never betted that an architect would talk about feelings or emotionality or describe it through architecture, through imagine a living organism. So
right. So you're taking these insights that are seemingly disconnected from your work.
Yes.
And then through these curiosity conversations or podcasts or other input sources, then you take them and they trickle into your work. And do you credit a lot of your success in your work because of the outside input that most people just don't ever get?
Yes, I definitely do. I credit all of these curiosity conversations and just in my most recent book, Face to Face, just saying it's saying yes instead of no. So when you walk past people to get to your office or the parking or the receptionist that's not even your receptionist, if you're saying yes, I see you as a human being, and you go, hey, like that always, it lives in a constellation of events in your consciousness that somehow then might seep into your subconscious state. But it gives you a competitive edge over other people. It gives you a tip on the jump ball, because someone might say something in a conversation years later and you go, oh, wait a second, I remember it. The receptionist or the Uber driver talked about Systema, and it's just like all these dots connect. So the more open you are to all of the dots in the constellation of dots that are available to you, that you continue to expand upon, the more opportunity you have.
It makes sense. It goes along with what you said, and I can't remember if this is the first or the second book, but you said instincts have no value unless they are informed.
Yes, I know.
And I wish more people would listen to that, because everyone now is like, well, my intuition says, and I'm like, you're into it? You're in your fifth marriage with a guy who's horrible. Your kids are estranged. Like, I don't know if you should be listening to your intuition. You should probably stop. Do the opposite.
Why don't you read a book?
Right.
Go see somebody. Get some help.
It's like when George Costanza on Seinfeld goes, I'm going to do the opposite of what George would normally do. Do you remember that?
Yes,
do you ever
I
see
do,
that?
of course.
And then, of course, everything starts working out in his life.
Exactly.
It's like, it just makes sense.
Very funny,
And this is how we get better instincts, right?
Yeah.
We inform our instincts not by, going to study something in depth necessarily.
Yeah, this sounds very categorical, but in that space, the helicopter parents, you know, which, I might be classified as one of them, parents that really care, have enough money, they care about their kids, they overly protective. They say, trust your instincts. But if your kid doesn't read a book, don't trust your instincts. No. Read some books, read something, meet people, learn. But it's like in show business, it's very personified, magnified, because people go, well, why do you like that actor? Or why do you like that story? Because I trust my instincts. I go, but your instincts aren't informed. You don't know anything.
You're an attorney.
Then I go get
your
out
instincts
of here.
are not.
Yeah.
Your creative instincts are. You went to law school. You should not be.
Read Malcolm Gladwell's book on outliers. Do that, and then come back and start trusting your
Right,
Stinks.
exactly. And I mean, Malcolm's latest book, he was on the show last week.
Oh, wow.
Malcolm's latest book is all about, hey, your instincts, probably totally wrong. People get shot because you think your instincts are correct. And it's not really a good look, you know? Yeah.
It's true about him, yes.
This went pretty well, in my opinion, Brian. I know you've got to go in a few minutes, but
Yeah.
my fear on
Thank
this
you.
show, my fear on the show is having a situation like you had with Isaac Asimov. You want to tell us about that? That was kind of funny. It makes I love that story.
Oh, your fear. Yeah. Okay. So basically this. Okay. So we're both the same person. He and I are both curious people, and I was a very curious person, and I seek to meet Isaac Asimov as you would seek to meet somebody.
Sure.
Isaac Asimov was the leading writer and probably the most prolific and most valid writer of science fiction.
I mean, he had like dozens and dozens and dozens of books.
think
He
he-
might have even had like he had so much
Yeah.
work.
He wrote like a book a month. or
It's
something.
unbelievable. Yeah, and they weren't even all science fiction. He had like books on, he had textbooks and stuff.
Yeah.
Just incredible guy.
So I wanted to meet Isaac Asimov because of all these extraordinary accomplishments, because he was the esteemed Isaac Asimov.
Yeah.
And so I flew across the country, coach seat, because I wasn't Brian Grazer then. And I was the beginning of Brian Grazer, mini Brian Grazer. And I meet with Isaac Asimov and his wife at the Ritz-Carlton Bar, Central Park West, in the bar. I'm remembering this. And I sit down with he and his wife, and they both order ginger ales. And his wife says, I do a quick exchange with both of them, starting off like I normally start off, and thinking I'm smart. And she says, Isaac, you know what? I don't think he knows your work well enough, and, you know, like robotics and stuff. I think we should get up and go right now. So
In front of you.
Right in front of me. They're having this conversation in front of me. And so Isaac said, you know, like,
You're the boss.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Said, you're the boss. And under 5 minutes, they just got up and left.
Oh my
They
God.
just left. They said, we're leaving. And they got up and they walked away. I couldn't do it. That was the end.
What did you take from that? I mean,
Well, first it was really embarrassing, and I felt like that was wrong of them, and it was, you know, it's just not. But then I later thought, years later, I thought they could have been right. I didn't know enough, and you know, they could have suffered through it, or we could have found commonality. But in order to write a book a month, you have to use your time wisely. And she said she could detect I didn't know enough about what he did for a living, and that's not respectful enough, and we're leaving. That was it.
Yeah.
Goodbye. So I try to be well researched.
I envy people who can just do that.
Oh, yeah,
I
me
mean, how
too.
many meetings have you sat through where you're like, I knew this 2 minutes in was going to be a waste of time? Many, especially in Hollywood.
Yes, many. So very right. That's true.
In A Beautiful Mind, this is probably like, I may edit this out, but I'm curious.
Okay.
How many times in A Beautiful Mind did people have to remind Russell Crowe to just like, hey, you're American, speak with an American accent? Because kind of like through the movie, he's just like not going to do that. He just talks in his own way.
His own way, yeah.
Yeah. He's got like a little accent. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a Boston accent.
Well, I think he just won an Oscar, so that made it tough.
Yeah. You can't really be like, hey.
We
this is-
hired him a pre-Oscar, and then he
Yeah.
won an Oscar for Gladiator. So now we were really on our toes.
Yeah. Yeah. You
So-
can't really.
Yeah, can't argue and go, you don't know what you're doing, Russell.
Right.
You can't say that.
Yeah. Yeah. He can just do him. And that's what I meant, I think, with the
And
management.
he was
of
very
artists.
good, by the way.
He was great.
But he did have that thing you just said.
It must be hard to take you see like little gladiator kind of mannerisms in the professor at that point. I mean, it must be hard to switch cold turkey and jump into another character.
Yeah, that is probably hard. Because in order to be convincing as a character, you have to live in that character. You're not just memorizing. It's not a TED Talk or something.
So you end up with like schizophrenic gladiator genius. Yeah, kind of a weird mix. Kind of a weird mix to be around for 100 hours a week or however long it takes to shoot a movie.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Brian, thank you very much. This was a really
sure.
fun show.
Good, for me too. Have me back, please.
I would love to.
If we get a good reaction from your crowd, we'll see.
We will.